Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a lot to this bill I like. My hang-up is not so much with this bill, but with the open primary upon which it still uses. It still allows. And I think that part, which unfortunately is part and parcel of this, which you really don't have the, and now that Section 3 is stricken, removed, then it's, that I think it's unfortunate because I think that would have been a place to deal with it, because I think the 75% of total voting members is something that's not indicative of the will of the people. And what that is it is, and the other thing that I don't like about the open primary upon which this relies, one, the way the open primary is designed is to put the moneyed interests in place so that that the people with the money get to choose the candidate and that's not the intent of this bill. I've got that, and so I don't want to assign any motives there, because I think the sponsors do value the caucus and assembly process. It's just what I can't get over is the part that is reliant on the open primary. Because one, it's an incredible waste of money because you're sending ballots to everybody, and it's forced affiliation. It's a violation of the First Amendment. We have two parties, we have multiple parties, and what you're saying is that because, and now, in a sense, to my Republican colleagues, it's because you are reliant on the government, and that's a very un-Republican place to be. Unlibertarian place to be. It's a very Democrat place to be. I mean, sucking up money from the government, we got that. But, we're guilty too. We're guilty too here. Because Article 5, Section 34 of the Constitution says that whatever the government gives money to, it has absolute control over. And so we took the path of convenience in this case. Now, I think the Props 107 and Props 108 were completely misled the people with the idea of the opt-out, and it certainly didn't explain that the opt-out made it virtually impossible to get out. But the open primary also allows for strategic voting, and that's a problem with this bill, not the bill necessarily, but the processes that are in place that underlie it, because the open primary also allows for strategic voting. So you can vote, so let's say it's whatever party A, party B, Sneetches on beaches, star-bellied Sneetches, not star-bellied Sneetches, but you have party A and party B. Party B can become party A right up until the time of the election. So that means that anybody, so you could have a singular party A race, and this would allow, the open primary allows everybody of the opposite party to enter in, and then the only thing that has to be done is in this case, I do agree that, a 200 signature process would be appropriate in this place, but 200 activists, say if you have an open primary, if you have an open election, open seat on party A, that means party B can run a candidate that is not party A, and they could completely overwhelm that. So the open primary is my issue with this, not so much with this bill. My issue is it just makes it hard to get to the rest of the bill because I can't get past the open primary that allows for strategic voting. It incentivizes the moneyed interests, because say a petition even for 200 signatures is so less so in this case since it's only 200 signatures given the timeline, so easier in that sense. But then you have all of the time in there that favors the institutions that have a lot of money. So that's not the intent of the bill. It's just the reality of the underlying process. So I want to make sure that's clear why I can't support the bill at this point. I think it is a problem that we need to address, So I do appreciate the conversation that we have here. I think we need, it's like, what's the iteration? I think one of the iterations would be to close the primary and stop forcing affiliation. If somebody wants to affiliate with Party A or Party B, they should just affiliate with Party A or Party B, and not just be out in the weeds. Actually state their intent. Now, I do understand why people, go unaffiliated, but unaffiliated can run their own candidate. So if you want to unaffiliate and be a non-major party, then be a non-major party, and that's fine. And I think that's a great relief valve that we can have, because I'm not opposed to George Washington's statement in his departing speech that we shouldn't have the parties. We should be looking at our constitutional issues, and we should be voting Constitution, not party. And too often, what we see and here in this room is specifically a great example, is that we see the parties just voting party instead of policy. So, and the open primary makes that happen. So the open primary, it favors money, it waters down, it takes away control of the candidates, it forces affiliation. It says it's like on our side we say, hey, we're Republicans, and then somebody else says, well, I want to have a say in what your elections are. Well, if you want to say in what our elections are, come join our process, get to know us, be part of the team. Don't just stand out in the weeds and then expect to have a voice. So the other part of the petition process that I'm not a fan of is that it is firewalled through a very partisan Secretary of State. We know that the Secretary of State should be a nonpartisan office, but with the current regime, we've seen that to the point of keeping political prisoners, the Secretary of State is a partisan office. So eliminating candidates by eliminating just enough signatures, and you see this all the time across the country with petitions, that the Secretary of State will reject just enough signatures that the petition is rejected, and then after the petition is rejected, then there's the recourse and the protest, but the appeal to the rejected signatures takes longer than is allowed to get on the ballot. So it's effectively, you might win the appeal after the election, but the election is over. So again, I like a lot of what this bill is trying to do. I just can't get there because of the open primary process. I wish we could have solved some of the open primary process here by allowing the parties to take back control, but I understand that, in this case, the state has taken absolute control, and as long as the parties are dependent on the money of the state and the processes of the state, then we're at the whim of the state. That's a very bad place to be if you believe in a Republican form of government, but that's where we are because we have people that are unwilling to cut the apron strings to the nanny state.